Infernal greetings, infernal blessings to all. This is a discussion on vampirism. And this evening, we will be talking about Kheper, Zhep'r, and Xeper. What is the difference, if there is any, and what does it really mean? Before we get into that aspect, let's just go over some other things. First of all, these are just some questions that people ask sometimes, and we're going to kind of go over it, some of these questions this evening. Are vampires or vampires real? Okay, now that's important to understand because in today's world, there is different levels of vampirism. You have your vampires, your sanguine vampires, and your psychic vampires, and lifestyle vampires. What is the difference? All real vampires can feed upon energy, whether pranic or sanguine. Okay? Lifestyles, though, however, they usually are just a part of the folklore and culture and the look of being a vampire. Are they really vested in it? Not so much. Okay. So understand that, because not everybody who claims to be a vampire really is. Some just do it because they like the way it looks. They like the movie folklore and the mythological and historical folklore, and they fall into it. Okay. Now, does that mean that as a lifestyler, a person who just lives the life of a vampire, that eventually you may discover that you really are a vampire? Well, that comes into the aspect of your awakening. What is an awakening? For some, it's when they awaken to the reality of the vampiric current itself. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight, and you could have been a vampire since 12 years old, let's say, and each year that went by, certain things happened that kind of opened you up to that reality that this really could be something you're about, or something that you belong to and unconsciously have been doing this. Okay, so it doesn't happen overnight. And it's not one event that triggers all other events. It is a simultaneous, concurrent events that happen back to back to back to back at different times. That awakening is a part of what we'll discuss tonight, Kheper, okay, or Zhep'r. It is that awakening where it is basically when someone realizes, yeah, I'm a vampire, okay? I'm a vampire, and as such, I've been drawn to this. I've been living this unconsciously, but now I'm making the conscious choice to initiate myself in the vampiric current, okay? So that is important to understand, because not everybody is a vampire. Okay, as I said before, not everybody's a vampire, and if it's not for you, it's not for you, and you should not force it, not try to be in it, not try to ride out with it if it's not really you, because it can backfire. Yes, it can. Okay, that is important to understand. All right, some are just lifestylers, or people who just live the life. They like the way it looks. They got turned on by Underworld. They got turned on by True Blood. They got turned on by the Anne Rice books and the Vampire Masquerade and all this and this and that. And they just fell in love with it. But they're just no way, shape, form, or fashion are they awakened to the reality that this is actually a spiritual awakening. Okay? And a physical awakening. So they're in love with the aesthetics of what it means to be a vampire, dressing goth or dressing dark and mysterious, wearing fangs or things of that nature. but are they really a part of it? No. Most people who just live the lifestyle of a vampire never will truly awaken to it. Okay.
And the other thing too, just not to interrupt your train, but this thing that we hear a lot of within the New Age, I want to train wreck that a moment, if we could, where they talk about psychic vampirism.
Right.
You know, somebody, this person's a vampire. I always feel drained when I'm around them and whatnot. That's 98% of the time, that's not true. Mm-hmm. Yes, this person may cause you to hemorrhage energy because they aggravate the fuck out of you. That's what's happening. You're just hemorrhaging energy. They don't know how to use that energy. They're not applying it directly to come after you. They're not using it to in an evolutionary manner. It's just they know that they bother you, they get under your skin, they get off on that and walk off. You feel drained because you want to kill them, but didn't. So
exactly.
I just wanted to address that one too, that particular concept.
That's a very key point, because it is a part of this whole conscious community, New Age caca, right? This crap that we hear is, oh, they're a psychic vampire. They're draining me. No. If you really understood vampirism, you would understand that, as Brother Demetrius says, someone who aggravates you and annoys you, in no way, shape, form, or fashion are they a vampire just because they do that. You have to realize people know your trigger points. Some of them will use it for their benefit, but they're not feeding off you. What's happening is they're triggering your emotions and you're reacting to them, right? What they triggered, you're reacting to them, and therefore your emotions feel drained because all your emotions were like overloaded, okay? Mm-hmm. That person's just enjoying you acting like a retard, okay? Yep. Or just ballistic, you're ballistic now. But they're not feeding consciously, and they don't have a purpose for feeding. A real vampire does not need to make you emotional, angry, agitated. Mm-hmm. None of those things are what we seek. Because in a way, when that happens, your energy is kind of messed up now, because we're seeking a more pure form of energy. And when your emotions get involved like that, we're not trying to feel that, because a lot of vampires are sympathetic and empathetic. So they feel what you're feeling. They don't want to feel that. That's not what we do. That's not how it works. But unfortunately, that's what people think. Okay. So some of these things we're going over is to debunk some of the myths of what people believe, or some of the beliefs of what a vampire is. Conscious community, cut the crap. You have no idea what you're talking about when you're talking about vampirism. You could have read 3 books on vampirism. You still don't know, okay? Because it's a actual spiritual system that has been well developed for thousands of years, and it is found in all levels of the occult, in all levels of various magical systems. You just are not aware of it. So, being that said, what are some of the other beliefs about vampirism? Vampires are at war with werewolves. No, we're not. That is actually created by books, fictional books. Nowhere in the history of time really were vampires and werewolves ever at each other's throat. Okay? That became, some of it was found in some Eastern European beliefs, but that's not really the case. There is more commonalities between a lycan and a vampire than people are even aware of. And therefore, the energies actually merge perfectly with each other than conflict with each other, okay? So we're not at war with anything. We're not. A vampire has no time to really be at war. A vampire's goal is to reach apotheosis, self-deification. So we're not trying to create war. We're trying to master ourselves and move beyond the mundane human mindset of conflict, of wars and things of that nature. We know there's a purpose in time that those things may happen, and we're well ready for that. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to constantly reach apotheosis. You think we really have time for the conflict and the war? You're mistaken. Reaching apotheosis, working day and night to reach your level of godhood, is a full-time job that we have no time for the mundane foolery that many people participate in.
If not for nothing, as a vampire, you're using those energies and currents, as you were saying, for your own elevation and evolution. Not really participating, not really getting involved in a lot of that nonsense. And like right now, there's all the chaos again with the people shooting each other. They want to put that fear and death current back in the air. Mm-hmm. Death means you can use that for 100% manifestation. How many people are actually using the death current, the fear and all that stuff that's in the air to manifest the good in their life? While everybody else is drying up and whatnot, folks that know how to use this, and that's also people that you may not like in those royal families and whatnot, are getting more. They're increasing. They're evolving. They're building wealth, manifesting wealth by using the current if they know how. Some of them know how just for mundane, but they don't know how to use it for evolution. So I mean, a vampire would participate in that, connect to this energy and use it for themselves. But as far as warring with people and just yes, I'm just going to start battling with these folk because they use a different spiritual system. What?
Exactly. And that leads to the other question people ask: are we demonic? Are we just straight dark and evil and grimy? And no, because vampirism in itself, when there's vampiric clans or covens or whatever titles people want to use for their group, okay, it's based upon respect for each other. It's based upon a code of honor. It's based upon the strength of brotherhood and sisterhood. Because as vampires, yes, left-hand path overall solitary, but as vampires, we do tend to come together in groups because there is a level of feeding that vampires do together. Okay, and so therefore the assistance and the accompaniment of others is favored. Okay, but to do that, there has to be a code of honor. There has to be respect. There has to be a lot of these things for that to take place. So we're not out here treacherous and just trying to cut people. And that's Hollywood fictitious caca. Okay, that is Hollywood's crap. That is fictitious books and information that's been put out. But that's not really how vampires operate. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when you meet a vampire, they're very sophisticated people. Very sophisticated, very educated, very everything. Okay, so put a lot of that nonsense to rest. That's what we're doing this evening. So you understand, because when we talk about vampirism in our tunnels of set classes, we don't want people to get the wrong idea. We're not talking about vampirism in the sense of what you see in the movies, underworld movies and True Blood, TV shows and originals and all that, where people are cutthroat and they constantly at each other, killing each other. That's not how we do. That's what sells for, ratings, but that's not really a vampire way. Now, some of what you see in the originals is true. There is some honor, there's some codes, there's some secrecy, because there's certain orders and brotherhoods and sisters that, people hold in respect and honor. But no, we're not out there in a treacherous manner. We're there to actually reach goals, and those goals is reaching your godhood, becoming as the most powerful being you can imagine. Okay? Now, that leads me to feeding, because you hear say a lot in these tunnel of set classes, right, about feeding and devouring. Well, let me lay some things to rest. There's a difference between destroying and devouring. Devouring is taking energy and transmuting that energy into something that is beneficial for you. Destroying is just that, destroying something that no longer benefits you or serves you and eliminating it for good. So there's a difference between that. There is also a difference between feeding. Just because you read some books on vampirism, you got some basic steps on feeding, does not mean you really know what feeding is. The vampiric classes that we have on Patreon, those who took those classes understand more that there's a lot more involved with being a vampire. It's unfortunate that some of y'all left, well, a lot of y'all left, before you actually got the whole mission completed of what it means to be a vampire. Okay? So, what are the levels of feeding as a vampire? Now, some people do feed unconsciously. I was one of those that fed unconsciously at an early age, my teenage years. And then when I got older and started traveling into the occult more and then left-hand path, all that which I did unconsciously became consciously clear. It became more, I was more aware of why and what I was doing since I was at an early age, okay? But then you have those who are awakened. Those who are awakened, you know, have been, some of them been initiated, they've been trained, they've been taught how to properly feed, okay? And then that would allow you to understand the 3 different levels of feeding, okay? A lot of people, this is how I know when they really understand vampirism or they don't. You ready to laugh? Okay, here you go. Some people will say, oh yeah, I'm a vampire. I do ambient feeding. I say, okay, explain. I feed off of nature. That's not ambient feeding, idiots. Sorry to tell you, that is not ambient feeding, okay? That is some fluffy new age twist on things. Ambient feeding is when you feed off of a large group of people, like concerts, clubs, social gatherings, etc., etc. And you and people of like mind usually go into these places and feed together. You could do it by yourself as well, but that's ambient feeding. So I'm sorry for those who believe that you're doing ambient feeding by feeding off of nature and the trees and things like that. No, that's called fluffy feeding. That's called you've been twisted and turned by some fluffiness somewhere out there and you believe that you're feeding. You're not. Okay? Ambient feeding is group feeding, meaning a group of people in an environment and you're there feeding off of them. Second, surface feeding is when you use your tentacles or tactiles or things or whatever you want to call it. You use these things in your feeding. So your tentacles, let's say, are, you know, directed towards the solar plexus of an individual or something of that nature. That is more surface feeding, where you tap into someone's aura, you tap into someone's chakras to get energy off of them, okay? And then you do deep feeding. Deep feeding is when you really tap into the energy body of an individual. This is also done through sex acts. Yes, sex acts.
Yep.
It is unfortunate a lot of y'all left the vampire class because you didn't get everything you were supposed to. And I'm sorry, but I'm not. That's your choice, you left, not mine. Okay? Now, understand this. There is some also who do sanguine feeding, or some people who do try to feed off the blood of an individual. That is dangerous. There is a lot of danger with feeding off of blood. It is known scientifically that if you feed off a certain amount of blood, your body will shut down. It will go into an autotoxic phase and literally shut down, and some of your glands will shut down. Your body has its own chemistry, and it has a level of blood that is needed to balance out with every other chemicals in your body. And once it passes that, you can have serious medical complications. And it's been proven scientifically that the body does not need to feed off of blood to heal itself.
And that is the reason why, like, sanguine feeding is usually between two partners. It's usually like almost like a fetish thing. I mean, yeah, some people do feel a charge or energy from it, but it's very little bit of, it's a tiny little bit of blood they're taking. You know, and it's usually between two people that are usually in an intimate relationship, as opposed to, you know, like a Hollywood movie, you just run in the streets and there's some hooker running down the street, you just go and grab her, bleed her out.
Yeah.
You know, that's no bueno.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, unfortunately, you know, these are some of the things that gives vampirism a bad name, because some people do things that are not, you know, just suited for everybody. So let's be real about that. You know what I mean? As a vampire, we really tend not to have a religion. Now, you do have some vampires that are still Christian, whatever else they choose to be, but overall, we tend to try to bypass religious monotheistic beliefs. We tend to, it's more of a spiritual process that we undergo. Okay, but you do have some that are definitely religious, so just keep that in mind. And here's another misnomer. Are all vampires goths? No, we're not gothic. Not all of us are gothic. Blah, 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 blah. No, 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 and no. What happens is goths got attracted to vampirism and vice versa because of the nature of the gothic subculture. Goths tend to be more open-minded, more accepting of different aspects. And then the appearance is that of a very, you know, kind of like deathly look sometimes. So some people associated the two together. No. As a vampire, we have many different fashion styles, have come from various walks of life, from various societies and cultures, so on and so forth. We're from everywhere, okay? So keep that in mind. And know, for some of you all who like to live the lifestyle and everything else, vampires do not avoid the sun. As a matter of fact, we chill out in the sun quite often, all right? We enjoy the sun, we enjoy everything, but some of vampires, we do enjoy the night more. We love the night, we love the darkness, we love these things, myself included. But we do not shun the sun, we don't run from the sun. That's movies again, that's fictional books and things that make you think that, you know, there's day walkers and night walkers and blah, blah, blah. No. Okay? So no, realize that. All right. So let's go over this aspect of blood again. This is from Father Sebastian. He breaks this down really good, okay? Some of these things we're going over are some of the questions that people have posed to him. So we're going over some of those questions that people have posed to us, and some of these things he answered really well. And a lot of this we're also bringing from our perspective, doing this work for many years now. Do vampires need to drink real blood? He states here, despite numerous claims to the contrary, the scientific consensus is that no human being is required to ingest blood to survive. And that includes vampires. Let me say that again. I know this might hurt a lot of people's feelings out there. I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Despite numerous claims to the contrary, the scientific consensus is that no human being is required to ingest blood to survive, and that includes vampires as well. The human body is incapable of ingesting large quantities of blood without suffering damage. Let me say that one again too. The human body is incapable of ingesting large quantities of blood without suffering damage. Attempting to consume large quantities of blood often results in vomiting and can lead to death or severe organ damage due to hemochromatosis, an iron overdose caused by an excess buildup of iron in the bloodstream. Sorry, but just had to go over that real quick. All right. So now let's get to where we really wanted to discuss today. Okay. And that is, wait, where'd it go? I had this right here. Okay. Kheper, Zhep'r, okay? Understand this. It is becoming. It comes from the word Kheper, which is to become. Now, if you understand the symbolism of Xeper, it's associated with the scarab beetle. Okay? The scarab beetle takes enrolled dung or caca, also known as crap, shit, etc., right? And they lay their eggs or their larvae inside of there. And then they take it and they roll it into a big ball, but they're rolling it in the direction of the sun. Okay? Which, if you understand the symbolism of Xeper, Xeper comes in the time of darkness into light. There's actually 4 phases of the sun that the Egyptians spoke about, but one of them was rarely spoke about out loud. There was the first phase, right? When Kheper rises. Okay? The second phase is when the sun is at its highest peak. Some would say that's Ra. Others associate that with Atun or Atan, okay, or Aten. And then when the sun sets, which is Amun. And then Kheper goes into the underworld, the Amduat, which is a time of noon and noonet, the primordial chaos of the duat, the Amduat. There is where your awakening really begins. There is where you face your demons, you face your darkest side, and you master yourself. And then you rise up again. So to a vampire, okay, this is a very important symbolism because many of us had to awaken to this calling of being a vampire. We had to become, we were in a process of becoming, going to the transformation, as I just stated, of the 4 points of the sun, okay? That is the process that we as humans, especially vampires, go through. So, for example, what is a great symbolism associated with vampirism? It is that of the dragon. The dragon represents some of the most deeply rooted primordial aspects of the self. Okay? And through your evolution, you learn to tap into that primordial aspect to cause a transformation so that you may become evolved and that spiritual predator who has learned to embrace their beast-like nature, their animal nature. We don't fight it. We don't go against it. We don't try to push it away. We actually embrace it. That is the aspect of the dragon, the awakening process of a vampire. Okay? So, Father Sebastian here says the core of vampire philosophy is embracing one's primal nature. How many of you all can embrace your primal nature? A lot of you guys struggle with that, and I'm going to be honest. I see it. You struggle because you're still not sure. You're still not sure if this is really for you or not. Okay? And then what makes it worse for you is that when you're in the process of discovering if this is really for you or not, the old self awakens again and starts the process of that old programming for millions of years now in humanity. You know what that process is? Fight or flight response. Mm. Many of you all, when you get into chaos in your personal lives, you tend to run from the work rather than stay and fight through it. I'm just being real, just observing. Many people run, they leave classes, they'll run to other people's classes, they'll do whatever the case is, but they don't fight to stay and work through the process of chaos. So then what happens is they come with the excuses. I'm leaving because of this, I'm leaving because of that, and I'll be back. You're not coming back. And if you were, you would have been back by now. You're not lying to no one but yourself. And you know what you're lying about? That you ran from when you most had the best opportunity to awaken to your reality of being a vampire, of reaching your godhood or apotheosis, right? You left because your fight or flight response came in, and most humans, don't believe me, check it out, psychologists tell you most humans will flight. They'll take flight. Very few fight. And that is unfortunate because when you are reaching into the core of your nature, your very fabric, and as a vampire, you start to learn, I have to embrace these things about myself. I can't run from these things. And the chaos that's produced in your life when you're in classes, when you're doing rituals, is happening because it's necessary to happen. You don't grow in stagnation. You don't grow in peace and calm and tranquility. You grow when things are chaotic. When things are in turmoil, that is when you grow. So when your life, literally the shit hits the fan in your life, many of you all run. That is the very time you should stay working the path. That is the very time you should stay doing your vampiric classes, your deific mass or your Klipoth classes, so on and so forth. I don't care who it's with, Beniti, myself, Michael W. Ford, Asenath Mason. This happens all across the board. I'm not just speaking about my Patreon classes. I'm talking about with others we've had discussions with, is people tend to run. You don't run when the shit hits the fan. You put your feet, you plant your feet down, and you fight through it. Something Demetrius said before in the Tunnels of Set classes that we have on YouTube. He said, the tree of death, right? The tree of darkness, the tree of death, the cliff off. The roots go deep. Think about that. The roots go deep. Trees plant their roots deep so that, like, for example, here in Florida, when we get 120-mile-an-hour winds through hurricanes that come through here every so often, only the strong trees stay standing. Demetrius knows what I mean.
Yep.
Only the strong trees stay standing. The ones whose roots don't go deep, meaning they don't plant themselves deep into the soil to withstand the chaos of the storms, those trees fall because they didn't plant their feet deep into the soil. Ask yourself, are you planting your feet deep into the soil? Are you putting your feet or your soul or your essence deep into the soil so that when the chaos comes, nothing can shake you?
And to that, you know, the clip off is not only just it has deep roots. The clip off are the roots of because you have the tree of life, then you have the clip off. Clip off came first. Those are the roots. That's where the tree of life gets its power. And yes, it's primordial, it's primal. And yeah, you stand your ground. Does that mean you're not going to get knocked down? That's not true at all, because I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that won't happen, because I've had it happen to me. You know, I mean, bad, thinking that I needed to stop doing my work. I needed to quit. I need to just not do anything anymore. But you go through that and you claw your way back out, and you're better for it on the other side.
Exactly.
And the thing about it is that when you are working this particular path, or these energies that get activated, it's a process that has started. So no matter where you go, that process is going to be going on. Whether you're here or anywhere else, that process is still there. You're going to see it in action because you opened it, if you actually did the work on that end. The point is to see it to its end, stick with it. If you're wanting the path to evolution, stick with it. Keep the climb going. Because you initiated the process, stay there. Just because you leave here doesn't mean the process stopped. We did not initiate the process. I didn't do it. Ravana didn't do it. Nobody else who was in the classes activated a process. Nobody else did. The devil didn't, God didn't, you did. So it's you that's going to have to deal with it and work with it.
Exactly. This is why we as vampires embrace our primordial nature. And key, very key. Father Sebastian says it clearly here, and I love this part. He said, we embrace our primal nature and we destroy the victim mentality. Do you know what the problem is? Why a lot of people struggle on the left-hand path or can't stay on the left-hand path? That victim mentality still rules them. They still want to lay blame to everything outside of themselves, other than themselves, for where they're currently at in their life. If you're going through chaos through this work, it's because it's supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen because it's testing your fortitude. It's testing your discipline. It's testing your passion. It's testing who and what you really are. And therefore, when you find an excuse to leave, like example, finances, you are playing the victim role. The finances is not the excuse. The excuse is you're using the finances as the excuse. Because as we said the other night, when you master your shit, when you confront your shit, when you work on your shit, finances flow to you in this path. Because all the obstacles and blockages in your mindset that's kept that away brings it to you. You've destroyed that. It brings it to you. But people make excuses because they still have a victim mentality. If your environment, example, you have a person in your household who is very oppressive of your spiritual process, why are you still with them? Don't tell me because I love them. And listen, that's all good and dandy at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, it's about self-preservation. If someone oppresses your spiritual awakening, you best believe they don't have your best interests at hand. Most people, unfortunately, most people who come into the left-hand path together rarely stay together. Do you know why? Because it will test everything about your relationship. Everything. And you will see who's the victim in a relationship, who has the victim mentality in a relationship, and who wants to blame everything on everybody and never takes responsibility. We accept the fact that we are in this situation in our life because of our own doing. So therefore, I don't blame no one or anybody for my current existence.
I think a lot of that victimhood in the process of that blocks the process of becoming comes from a lack of understanding on some things, like being a vampire. What is that? What is a vampire? And there's various, things that are discussed on what a vampire is. It's this, it's that. I have my own definition of what a vampire is. Mm-hmm. My definition, and I don't proclaim to know everything or anything like that, so I'll put that disclaimer there first. My definition of what a vampire is, it's a realized human. Mm-hmm. That's it. We're not unique. Nothing more, nothing less. Human being is a predator. When you realize that, you're now a vampire. That's what you are. That's all a vampire is a realized human. That's right. And then you start working that and applying that to every sector of your life. There are some businessmen out there. I mean, just they're vampires to the core. They know how to operate. They know how to function in that manner. Right now in our society, we've got so many traps that we put people in. They came up with this whole toxic masculinity thing. You got people coming up with all of this other stuff. All of that is complete and total garbage. Human beings are predators. Yep. And when people become to that awareness and start working that and connecting that victim mentality starts to peel away. Some of the blocks start to peel away. They go through them, they take care of them, they conquer them, and they move on. They become more receptive to what's happening in the world. Their senses sharpen. That's where all of that comes from, the powers of the vampires. Really, that there's no great mystical thing, quote unquote. It's just being aware of what you already are is what happens. It opens up. Then it seems mystical, but it's just what you are all along. Just my 2 cents on that.
Well, that's correct. A vampire is literally a predator, a spiritual predator. But even if you don't call yourself that, you still have predatory nature and instincts. That's why you have some humans who tend to be dominant and some who tend to be submissive. Mm-hmm. Some who are submissive are prey by nature. Unfortunately, that is also another aspect of this that people don't speak about. We're not all equal. You have those who are meant to serve and those who are meant to rule. And unfortunately, we don't realize that because we have this equality mindset. That is the biggest lie. Equality is the biggest lie and has been the biggest lie because no two people, when you put them together, and you dissect them, have equal traits. One of those people are going to be dominant in some aspects of the life, and the other will be dominant in certain other areas of their life. And that person who's not dominant in those areas cannot be equal to that person. No matter how much you want to make it, no matter how much you want to sing kumbaya, hug, hold hands, squeeze, and love each other, unfortunately, you're not waking up. You're still playing that path of the illusions of life, of what it is and what it isn't. You still want to be sweet and nice and not realize the sweet and nice sometimes leads to you being taken advantage of. Are we saying you're vicious and you have to be callous and you have to be? No, that's not what we're saying. But we are aware that you have a predatory nature. And as a predator, you will be dominant in certain areas of life. That's what it is. So let me finish this off by reading this last part. And because we have another class at 8 o'clock, question and answer for Patreon. Zhep'r. Okay? Zhep'r. Zhep'r is about rebirth. Rebirth into your vampiric self. It's about self-empowerment, raising your vibrations, having a positive outlook and positive energies in life. That doesn't mean we shun the negative. That's just as important as the positive. Why I say that? Because without the negative, the positive, you can't really determine things sometimes. You have to be able to judge things sometimes, and knowing both aspects allows you to make the best decision for yourself. Okay? So no, not everything is positive. Creation, the ability to create, and a spiritual awakening that leads to a prosperous, healthy, and vital life. That is what Zhep'r, Kheper, however you want to pronounce it, is all about. It is not just a temporary goal, a one-time goal. It is a constant journey throughout the rest of your life while you're still breathing in the physical. That is why Zhep'r or Xeper is important as a vampire, and just in general. It's important in your evolution. It's important in your transformation. So as vampires, the work is never done. The work is never done. That's why the evolution was from the vampire magic class to the comedic vampire magic class. Oh, some of y'all got thrown off because I had the title comedic there first. So you thought we weren't going to discuss more general vampirism. Oh, yes, we do. Actually, we get more involved. We go deeper into certain aspects and things, because that's the class that's supposed to prepare you for the Black Serpent clan of vampirism. That's what comes next. So some of you all thought, oh, well, I'm not going to join the next one because it's just comedic. No, it's not. It deals with everything from a comedic and East Indian perspective on the origins of vampirism and certain energies and currents that come from those areas. Okay? We are still evolving and transforming through the comedic vampire class. It is a day and night process. Don't forget that. All right? My brother Demetrius, thank you for joining me. Thank you for breaking and sharing your knowledge and information for others, because they need to hear this, and realize that it's others out here who have a lot of wisdom. And my brother Demetrius has been walking this many years as well. So I have him in a lot of videos now because y'all need to hear other people too. And you'll see he's journeyed. He understands this from many various aspects that he came into this. That is a wealth of wisdom. So that's why he's here and we work together. All right. So Infernal blessings to all. You will all watch this on YouTube, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll see you all in the near future.
And
Bye-bye.
I'll see you in just a moment.
Yes, you will.
All right.